So it is Sunday the 10th of September, and it's the first Sunday of the new church year at the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'm just doing my little protest against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal. And I made a point of being here for the official start of the church year. Essentially, Unitarian Universalists tend to close down the churches in the summer. Sometimes they completely close them, or they have lay-led services while the minister's away on a fairly lengthy vacation. And they start up again early in September, usually the weekend after the Labor Day weekend, and that's what is happening at the Unitarian Church of Montreal. They're having their first service with Reverend Diane Rollert on the 10th of September, the Sunday after the Labor Day weekend. And I actually have been protesting for a little bit. I protested earlier in the morning for somewhat over an hour, and then I decided to go have a little break while the service was in progress and come back and continue the protest. I was kind of hoping my chalk slogans would still be here when I got back. I wasn't sure because they have erased them fairly rapidly in the past, but as we can see, we're doing okay on the chalk slogan front here. So they have not yet erased my chalk slogans. So we'll continue to protest as people exit the Unitarian Church of Montreal following the church service. And that should be quite soon. People should start filtering out of the church following the Sunday service, usually around 11:45 that people start to come out. Quite a lot of car traffic. It seems that construction on the highway, Turcotte Interchange, is causing quite a lot of people to take the Maisonneuve Boulevard here, east of Descaries Boulevard. So quite a bit more traffic than you normally see on a Sunday. Which is fine by me. The more cars that see my picket signs protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, the better my protest is. So anyhow, just circulate back and forth here as we're supposed to do according to the police. You're not really supposed to stand in one spot while you're protesting, although it actually, it actually should be just fine. I think I've seen plenty of protests where the protesters standing in one spot. Sometimes they even have a table set up, with pamphlets and so on. But when I first began this protest, the police told me that we had to circulate, and so I've been doing that, most of the time. I will stop and have a chat with someone. But in between chats, I'm usually walking back and forth with the picket signs. It actually makes them more visible. I can see, who's coming, and basically have the picket signs facing the maximum number of pedestrians and vehicles and so on. And ever since they put in the bike lane here, getting quite a few cyclists as well, although not that many right now. Had some earlier. But with the bike lane, there's more cyclists going by than ever before. And with the construction on the Turcotte Interchange, there's more cars going by than ever before. So quite a significant increase in the public seeing these picket signs, and to some extent the chalk slogans. So some people coming this way in the cars. I suppose the service might possibly go a little bit longer than normal today. It's also possible they got some kind of lunch or something following the service. I know there's some kind of presentation following the service, so there may not be as many people coming out immediately. Let's have a look here. 11:45, yeah, so it's about time people would start filtering out of the church under normal circumstances, but I haven't seen anyone come out yet. We'll see what happens. You got plenty of public here though, cars and cyclists and pedestrians. You got lots of traffic to see the picket signs. And to some extent the chalk slogans. I mean, the cars probably can't really read the chalk slogans, but certainly the pedestrians and cyclists can read them as they go by.
What?
So there are quite a few bikes now. Anyway, I'm very happy that my chalk slogans are all intact for the time being. It's kind of nice. Let's just have another quick look at the chalk slogans here. So, Unitarians cover up sexual abuse of children. Well, yes, unfortunately that's a very truthful statement. Not only in terms of Unitarian Universalists falsely accusing me of blasphemous libel in an effort to intimidate me into deleting blog posts that tell the readily verifiable truth about certain Unitarian Universalist ministers engaging in what the Unitarian Universalist Association's Stikeman, Elliott, Barristers and Solicitors lawyer describes as such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. That's a pretty apt description there, I'd say. Yeah, other stuff too. But yeah, definitely. Oh yes, for instance, another way in which Unitarians cover up sexual abuse of children, and this one's quite egregious as well. Let's just come back to that. In June of 2014, UUA moderator Jim Key, also known as James See No Evil Key, stood up in front of thousands of delegates at the annual General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and in the middle of his first moderator's report to a General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, he inserted what was supposed to be an apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. That apology was full of misleading statements and even some outright lies. And one of the outright lies that Jim Key told were the following words. There were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations. So Jim Key, in what was supposed to be an apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct, denied the existence of any people who had been sexually abused by Unitarian Universalist ministers, when they were children. And this is patently false. And Jim Key knew it was false. He knew of cases of sexual abuse of children committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, because I had told him of a number of cases as part of my efforts to persuade him that he needed to ensure that the Unitarian Universalist Association formally withdrew its false blasphemous libel accusation against me and properly apologized for it, and told the truth about, just how many Unitarian Universalist ministers are in fact guilty of committing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Oh, and I expected him to hold UUA President Reverend Dr. Peter Morales accountable for that immoral and unethical and borderline criminal and, quite frankly, batshit crazy misuse of blasphemy law in legal bullying intended to hide pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, etc. But no, Jim Key decided he was just going to brazenly lie and brazenly misinform thousands of Unitarian Universalists who were seated in front of him, and pretty much everyone else, who would have seen his official statement, and essentially the public as well. This is a annual meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and the record of his first moderator's report and the apology, or so-called apology it contained, are public. And so he's basically lying not just to Unitarian Universalists, but the public in general. He's just outright denying any sexual abuse of children by Unitarian Universalist ministers, or at least he's denying any knowledge of sex abuse of children. But of course, in denying any knowledge, in saying that, well, I investigated clergy sexual misconduct and I didn't find any evidence of sexual abuse of children, well, that's what he's essentially saying. Oh, so we got some water coming out here. Oh, this is cute. So this is water communion at the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and it looks like they're bringing water out to pour it on the plants or something. So this is an interesting twist on water communion. So water the plants. So yeah, we'll just make darn sure they see our picket signs. So of course they're doing their very best to ignore the picket signs and pretend there's nothing wrong at the Unitarian Church of Montreal or anywhere else in the Unitarian Universalist religious community, but they are definitely badly mistaken. So, but yeah, just laugh and chuckle and smile and pretend there's nobody standing here with picket signs protesting against sexual abuse of children and sexual abuse more generally committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers, and the immoral and unethical and borderline criminal attempts to cover up and hide such clergy sexual abuse by Unitarian Universalist ministers. So yeah, just pretend nothing's wrong. Just bury your heads in the sand, as is the habit of Unitarian Universalists, apparently. Just totally deny the truth, wallow in willful ignorance and psychological denial about serious problems within the Unitarian Universalist religious community in general, to say nothing of the Unitarian Church of Montreal more specifically. Now, I'm not saying that the Unitarian Church of Montreal has a problem in terms of sexual abuse of children, but the Unitarian Church of Montreal is totally complicit in the Unitarian Universalist Association's false blasphemous libel accusation against me, and it's been ignoring my protest against all forms of clergy abuse, because this, come back here, this chalk slogan here says, Unitarian clergy abuse sucks. So that covers all forms of Unitarian clergy abuse. It's, in my view, not limited to sexual abuse. Although normally when you say clergy abuse, people immediately think of sexual abuse. But no, clergy abuse can include verbal and psychological abuse on this part of ministers and clergy and so on. It can also include financial shenanigans and other abuse. So it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. Abuse of power and various kinds of abuse of power engaged in by Unitarian Universalist ministers. For instance, you know, the false blasphemous libel accusation against me that Reverend Dr. Peter Morales authorized is an abuse of power. It's a misuse of the legal counsel of the Unitarian Universalist Association, attempted misuse of Canada's blasphemy law. That's, you know, what these signs say right here, that it's a misuse of Canada's blasphemy law on the part of Reverend Dr. Peter Morales and Kathleen K. Montgomery and Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein, etc., you know, to falsely accuse me of blasphemous libel in an attempt to cover up and deny pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers and Unitarian Universalist lay leaders. So that is abuse of power that I consider to be a form of clergy abuse when it's engaged in by clergy, and Reverend Dr. Peter Morales and Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein are both deeply implicated in the Unitarian Universalist Association's attempted misuse of blasphemy law in clergy abuse cover-up.